So I'm going to start, and the people who are late, and they will catch up, or they'll go watch the recording. So I am Leah Peer, music director of Kol Nashim, the women's choir of the Colorado Hebrew Chorale, and welcome to the second episode of Marvelous Musical Men, exploring the music of Israel through some of its or her seminal male singers. We did a long series on female singers in the spring and into summer. And so tonight we are going to look at Yehoram Gaon, and I'm going to share my PowerPoint and slideshow, play from the start. Okay. There we go. There's my page. And so, if any of you have singers that you are particularly fond of, singers or actors, I recommend this process of researching them as if you're going to present some sort of program about them, because it really changes your perspective. And so Yehoram Gaon was born in 1939, just like Arik Einstein, and is still among the living and still active. Really? So you may remember that different singers, there's different information about their roots. And if you remember, those of you who were at the Arik Einstein, basically it said nothing was available other than the names of his parents. And we had people like Esther Ofarim, whose family came from Iraq, but were in Israel for 5 generations, who was very offended when she was interviewed and asked, where is she from? Well, that is not the case with Yehoram Gaon. Yehoram Gaon is very much involved with his family story and with his past. And if you open up his Wikipedia page, and I confess I did not look at the English page, I looked at the Hebrew page, it starts with the fact that his father was born in Bosnia. That's where his biography begins. His father was born in Bosnia, made Aliyah to Israel in the 20s. Okay. Was sent to teach, please mute yourselves, was sent to teach Hebrew to potential Olim in Turkey, which is where Gaon met.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. This thing is on.
I have no control over that. Does anybody else have a problem hearing me? Then Rod, you may want to increase the volume at your end. Sometimes you have to log out and come back into the Zoom meeting. It's not anything I can control. So in any event, his father, Moshe David Gaon, and there's a wonderful picture of him right here. He looks a lot like Yehoram's older brother, Benny, right here, who became a very influential businessman in Israel. Notice all this family information. It's all in Yehoram's Wikipedia page. And so his mother and father returned to Israel in the 20s and establish a home there. And they have 4 children. Yehoram Gaon is the baby, who was born in 39. His oldest brother was born in 1925. So he grew up in mandatory Palestine. And another piece, so the one piece, very important piece of his information, of his background that really infuses his whole career and his whole view on what his job is as a performer and an entertainer, is that he is from a Sephardi family. And the second piece is that he is a Jerusalemite. He grows up in Jerusalem. He talks about his memories of going to worship at the Kotel with his grandfather. He talks about going out to count the stars when Shabbat goes out. Many of these things infuse his story and infuse the things that are important in his life. And we will talk about that as we continue exploring his life. So his very, very early life, he talks about in different situations. He tells stories as parts of his performance. So he starts out the beginning. Sorry, I did neglected to mention. He was born in Mount Scopus and he grew up in Bet HaKerem. Bet HaKerem, for those of you who know Jerusalem, is the area where Har Herzl is and where Yad Vashem is. It's a very old neighborhood of Jerusalem. And if you grow up as a Jerusalemite, as I did, then this is where the old quote unquote aristocracy of Jerusalem grows up in. And so he's in the center of things. He goes to Bet HaKerem Elementary and middle school, and then he goes to Bet HaKerem High School, which later becomes called Liad HaUniversita because it's next to Hebrew University, which, by the way, is where I went to high school. And I went there in 9th grade, and I can tell you that if you went there in 9th grade versus the Bet HaKerem kids who started there in 7th grade, you were always a little bit of an outsider. So in 1957, he joins La'akat HaNachal with Arik Einstein. Uri Zohar is the commander. Those of you who were at the Arik Einstein program saw this picture already. Here's Arik Einstein right here. Well, this is Yehoram Gaon. He also is accepted as an actor. There are occasional songs where he is given a solo line, and Uri Zohar recommends to him that he speak his line instead of singing it. He is not a natural singer, and I know some of you will be horrified by this, but later in his career, he doesn't always sing in tune, but the contribution that he makes to Israeli cultural life goes beyond his vocal quality and whether or not he sings in tune. So like Arik Einstein, like many others, in the Nachal, he joins this group. The director and choreographer of many of the programs in Nachal is Naomi Polani. She is still alive, and there are interviews with her. She was born in 1927, still around. May she live to 120. And many of the graduates went to continue to work with her and to enhance their skills. She worked on choreography, she worked on singing, she worked on presentation on the stage. And so he joins the Tarnegolim. You can see right here, here's Gaon, which is basically an army troop outside of the army. 1961, he gets out of the army. And in addition to his work as an actor, and acting was very central for him, he joins Gesher Hayartkon trio with Arik Einstein and Benny Amdurski. And I'm going to exit this share and get into my YouTube, where we're going to hear our first song, which is called Otach, You. And I'm going to play it for a little longer than I usually do. You will hear Gaon as a solo. I believe this one has, okay, didn't remember if we had an ad or not. At about 55 seconds, you will hear Yehoram Gaon sing a solo.
אותך הזכרתי בך לעת ערבית, אותך שקע חמה כמו תמיד, ראשי פרחים הפכו צהוב לארגמן, סיפרו שבועת ליבי לעננים, אני אביך פרפר קטן, רוחף בין שושנים.
Here he is.
ביתך כת שכן מול ים, אותה היה שמת פריו כדם, צרן עפם היה מסתור ללב הישן.
So as beautiful as it would be to continue listening to all of these songs all the way through, we will be here until tomorrow morning. So we will leave the Gesher Hayartkon, but all of this is on YouTube. And if you are interested in having all my links, just send me an email and I'm happy to share my PowerPoint with you. So in 1962, after the first season, he leaves Gesher Hayartkon to launch a solo career. In 1965, he performs live on Kol Yisrael, and I'm going to go in and out again. I searched and searched, and there are not a lot of Ladino tracks of him on YouTube.
Deborah Kochko.
Sorry, Deborah Kochko is going to be on Monday at 7:30 p.m. This is a session on Yehoram Gaon. So he also performed live on Israel radio, Kol Yisrael, the voice of Israel. And so I found this Avretu, which is Avretu Puerta, open your door. And so this is live on the radio. It doesn't exist anywhere as a recording. And it is just so lovely that I had to share that, a little bit of that with you. So this is 1965.
Abre tu puerta cerrada, en tu balcón luz no hay. El amor a ti te vela, para ti mostró, partimos de aquí.
So already you can hear what that mature voice is going to be like. It's just a lovely, lovely, lovely song. And again, if you want the links. So 1965, he releases his first song, his first album, all the songs of Yosef Gamzo, which includes a bunch of translations. And Yosef Gamzo is best known as for his song Hakotel, which came out for the 67 war. So the whole city is gossiping about us is another album that he releases at this time. And I just had to play you a little bit of this piece, this song, which is called Zenidbak, or It Sticks. And we'll talk a little bit more about it when we return from this. So move you, get rid of that. All right, be prepared.
יש לך שתי עיני אש וגם חיוך שלם ויש לך מה שיש אך אין לך לב אך אין לך לב
So of course you all recognize that melody. And instead of I want to hold your hand, it says you have no heart. En lach lev. So, and if you remember, we saw Arik Einstein also did a version of a Beatles song, right, with Yafa Yalkoni. And so this is very common, and often the what Israeli poets call a translation has absolutely nothing to do with what the original words said. It's just putting Hebrew words to a non-Israeli song that that they like. So, and you can hear already in this piece, this song, that Gaon's voice and pop music, maybe not so much what is the best thing for him to do. So we are going to go now to one of his early songs that he releases in the record about Yossi Gamzo. And there are a lot of words here that have to be explained. And also we need to put our political correctness aside because it's kind of not relevant culturally. And so in 1965, Yehoram Gaon is singing a song that Yossi, please keep yourselves muted, everybody. Please keep yourselves muted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are folks here who are not muted.
Yeah.
Very distracting. There we go. And so in 1965, Yossi Gamzo is writing a poem about, oh, those women we used to have in this country. So when the grush is a very small coin, I believe it was 1/10 of an agora. An agora is the equivalent of the Israeli penny. And so the early grush had a hole. And so when the grush had a hole is setting our time. So this is pre-state chalutzim. And we spent our times in the swamps and on roads, and there were no pieces. The Hebrew word is chatichot, So if you think back to the movie Five Easy Pieces, so there were no, sexy girls or no bimbos. My husband and I discussed back and forth what word we should use here, but it's hard to translate. But so there were no pieces in our country, but buddy, there were women. And the chorus says, ugh, where are those girls wearing ponytails and jumpers, carrying a hoe and a knife, which in the song is pronounced shivria, but my husband says the real pronunciation is shabaria, and you can see it kind of looks like a Bedouin knife with a curve there. Why don't you see them anymore? Then in those days, they would ride from above on the horses of Hashomer. But today, they ride their husbands. And a donkey means something else entirely. Ugh, where are they, those ladies? They hid pistols in their shirts and some grenades in case of battle fire. But today, the cleavage is so deep, it barely hides what's there. So there's no room for anything else. Yeah, I know, we're covering our faces. And those communist babes, they read Pushkin on the threshing floor and broke hearts at the same time. But today, it is clearly different because they immediately want to get down to business, as in smooching. Ugh, where are they, those girls wearing ponytails and jumpers, carrying a hoe and a knife? Why don't we see them anymore? So here's the Hebrew words. It's a short chorus. And like many of the songs that Gaon likes at this time, the chorus is very different from the verses. So let me get my key. And Gaon is, oh, wrong song. Gaon is a high tenor, which means that he sings in a key that's obnoxious for most of us. Parts of it are too high, parts of it are too low. So pick your key. So here's what it sounds like, and then we'll go over the words. Ach, efo hen ha'achurot hahen, im hakuku v'hasarafan, im haturia v'hashivria, lama kvar lo ro'im otam. Now, of course, many of you are going to sing this an octave lower, which I end up having to jump up. So I'll start down there, but then I promise you I'm going to jump up because it's just really, it's either really low or really high. Those are the choices. So, ach, efo hen. Easy. Here you go. Ach, efo hen. Habachurot hahen. Habachurot hahen. Who's not muted? Somebody is not muted. Im hakuku, kuku is a ponytail. Vehasarafan is a jumper. This is not a Hebrew word. This is a Russian word. Im hakuku vehasarafan. Your turn. Im hakuku vehasarafan. Im haturiya. Im haturiya. Vehashivriya, vehashivriya, lama kvar lo ro'im otam. Here you go. Lama kvar lo ro'im otam. All right, from the top, everybody together. Ach, efo hen habachurot hahen, im hakuku vehasarafan, im haturiya vehashivriya, lama kvar lo ro'im otam. I cannot sing this an octave lower. It's middle C. I have no low C. Ach, efo hen. Here you go. Ach, efo איפה הן? My turn. הבחורות ההן, הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן, עם הקוקו והשרפן. Let's do just that much together. איפה, איפה הן הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן. So far so good? Yeah. עם הטוריה, עם הטוריה. Here we go. עם הטוריה והשבריה, והשבריה. Put it together. עם הטוריה והשבריה. Last line. למה כבר לא רואים אותם? Your turn. למה כבר לא רואים אותם? Whole thing. אך איפה, איפה הן הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן, עם הטוריה והשבריה, למה כבר לא רואים אותם? So hopefully you have your song sheet printed or separately on your screen. And what I'd like you to notice as we sing along with Yehoram is how much he acts when he sings. Now, you're not going to see him singing, but you can hear in his voice how he acts out this song. Here we go.
כשבגרוש היחור והוצאנו את הזמן על ביצות וכבישים, לא היו חתיכות בארצנו, אך היו יא חביבי נשים.
Here we go.
אך איפה הן הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן, עם הטוריה והשבריה, למה כבר לא רואים אותן? הן היו אז רחות כך מעל, על סוסי עתודת השומר, אך כיום הן רופאות הבעל, וחמור זה כבר עסק אחר. Here we go. איפה הן הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן, עם הטוריה והשבריה, למה כבר לא רואים אותן? הן טמנו בחזה הרבנו, וכמה רימונים לשעת אש, אך כיום מצופים יש כאלו, שבקושי נכנס מה שיש. אך איפה הן הבחורות ההן, עם הקוקו והשרפן, עם הטוריה והשבריה, למה כבר לא רואים אותן? זורם את פושקין וקראו את הלב בו בזמן אך כיום זה שונה בפירוש כי הן מיד ניגשות לעניין הן הבחורות ההן עם הקוקו והשרפן עם הטוריה והשרייה למה כבר לא רואים אותן אך איפה הן עם הקוקו והשרפן עם הטוריה והשרייה למה כבר לא רואים אותן.
And in case you didn't notice, of course, the melody is a Russian folk melody, which there were no compunctions to borrow either. So 1966, he goes to New York to study acting and is invited back to Israel and to what he thinks is to get the part of Kaza in Casablanca, but it's actually an audition. And in a couple of This Is Your Life programs, he talks about how he wasn't going to go back. You know, it's kind of a long way to go from New York to Tel Aviv for an audition, but he was encouraged to do it anyway. And so he did. And of course, he got the part of Casablanca. And after that, as they say, all the rest is history. He got the part. It is initially launches on the stage in Habima, is a huge hit. And in addition to making him an international star, it launches his long-term love affair with Dov, otherwise known as Dubi Zeltzer, who is an Israeli composer. And for more in-depth, we will sing a song from Casablanca, but for more in-depth on Casablanca and the music of Dov Dubi Zeltzer, be sure to register for the L'chaim program in February, where Dr. Seth Ward, president of the board of the Colorado Hebrew Chorale and longtime tenor, will be going in depth on about the play, the movie, and the music of Zeltzer. So Casablanca is the first of 3 movies that are seminal in the life of Yehoram Gaon. Casablanca, which hits the theaters in 1967 and is made into a movie in 1973, sheds light on the Ashkenazi Sephardi relationship in the state of Israel. I happened to watch last night Valley of Tears, which is the new Israeli series set during the Yom Kippur War. And it deals with similar issues of segregated communities, of assumptions that in the army, the officers are Ashkenazim and the grunts are Sfaradim, and assorted issues of that sort. And so you might remember that I said that Gaon is a Sfaradi, and he's not a complaining Sfaradi, he's a proud Sfaradi, okay? His heritage is something that he carries with him. He talks about his grandfather and his father to this day as if they were alive. And so Casablanca is the first step in his musical biography, as it were, or his film biography. In 1971, he releases a movie called Ani Yerushalmi, again with the music of Dov Zeltzer. And it is after the Six-Day War, Jerusalem is reunited. He talks about going, his grandparents and his father are buried on the Mount of Olives. Mount of Olives was in Jordanian hands after the War of Independence. And so he talks of going and finding their graves and the landmarks that they knew to look for in order to be able to find those graves. The whole movie, Ani Yerushalmi, and actually all 3 of these movies are available in total on YouTube, actually on Yehoram Gaon's YouTube channel. None of them have English titles. And so in Ani Yerushalmi, he seeks to show the viewer, the 1971 viewer, what Jerusalem was for him as somebody who was born pre-division of the city, and what it looks like as a Sfaradi, who lived in Jerusalem. And he talks about customs that he remembers growing up of sitting on the floor in over Tisha B'Av, because they would sit on the floor during Tisha B'Av, because for Sfaradim, you know, the expulsion of Spain in 1492 is also dated as Tisha B'Av. And so that was a mourning for them. He talks about, as I mentioned before, going out and counting the stars and being told to never point at the stars because you might burn your finger. In his third movie, From Toledo to Jerusalem, he talks more about that. In 1989, he goes back, his family tree extends back, allegedly, there's a family mythology that Yehuda Gaon, who was the family patriarch, was burned at the stake in Toledo. And in 1492, the family is expelled from Spain and makes its way to Bosnia. And so in this wonderful film, which is in Ladino with Hebrew titles, so sorry, I did post and ask if it existed in English titles and I didn't get an answer. He explores this background and he talks about don't point at the stars, and not pointing at the stars came from that ancient Spanish Judeo population, which if you were out counting the stars Saturday night, it gave it away that you were Jewish. And so you never pointed to count the stars, you just counted them without showing them. And so really these three movies encapsulate what is to be the focus, foci of the music and the entertainment that he releases. And so, of course, we have to sing something from Casablanca. So this is the one that everybody knows, Kol Kavod. Kol Kavod, which is hard to translate because kavod is honor on the one hand, it's respect on the other hand. But when you say Kol Kavod, it means good job, good for you. So it has multiple ways of understanding this. So Kaza tells sings this very famous song as he's wandering in the marketplace, and he says, in the Kasbah, in the midday, the marketplace, the Kasbah is the marketplace, when the market is open, I just walk around, didn't have a good translation for with chazeh matuach, meaning my shoulders back. I guess my shoulders back would be the best way to do, with my shoulders back, puffed up, and everybody says, what a guy, passing in the alleyways, and everybody greets me from the windows, Kol Kavod. It's not, I give you the honor, although that's how we translated it, but everyone would know then very well who gets more respect. Kulam hayu yodim az tov meod, lemי yesh yoter kavod. And when battle would flare up, and remember I mentioned in Valley of Tears, and the first episode is really hard to watch because it focuses on a tank troop on the Golan as the Syrians attack. And you see the guys in the tank, and they're all Sfaradim who are dealing with the shells and stuffing them into the gun. And when the battle would flare up and the unit wouldn't move, the officer would say, you first, Kaza, because everyone knew that Casablanca is always first to march. And from behind they yelled, Kol Kavod, respect. Kulam hayu yodim az tov meod, lemי yesh yoter kavod. A guy goes walking with a girl in Jaffa at twilight. If I want, she'd be by my side between my arms, but I won't bother that guy, so he won't start to shake, because with me it's a principle. I have kavod, I have self-respect. Kulam hayu yodim az tov meod, lemי yesh yoter kavod. And if a drunk comes to some bar, I calm him down. He'd fly away from the clock tower. The clock tower is an allusion to the city, the Yafo, the port, straight to Jebelia, the prison. But later when he comes back, he seems very small. He raises a glass to me and he says, Kol kavod. Kulam hayu yodim az tov meod, lemי yesh yoter kavod. So here's the text. Is there anybody here who has never heard this song? Raise your hand. Okay, we have one, so we'll do it. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. Same words again. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. Let me find the key. It's another delightful key. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי, תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. All right, let's go in, and this is an excerpt from the movie. So we actually have something to see. Let's get that away and get you on full screen. And here we go.
אצלנו בקזבלנקה היו נותנים כבוד לבן אדם, אפילו אם הוא לא בן אדם. הגס בחצי היום כשהשוק פתוח, הייתי ככה סתם הולך והחזה מדוע. כולם אומרים איזה קלון עובר בסמטאות, עושים שלום מכל חלון. כל הכבוד לכולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. כשהקרב היה בוער והכיתה לא ששה, המפקד היה אומר, אתה ראשון יקרת! גם ידעו שקזבלן ראשון תמיד לצעוק, ומאחור הם צעקו, כל הכבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. אחד הולך עם בחורה ויעקב בן 40, אם רק תרצה אצלי תהיה ישר בין הידיים, אף מפריע לבחור שלא יתחיל לראות, כי זה אצלי פשוט יש כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. מה שקורה לאיש פער אני אותו מרגיע, אז מה מן השעון ישר כמדיה, אבל כל הכבוד, כולם היו יודעים אז למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי יש יותר כבוד. כולם היו יודעים אז טוב מאוד, למי תמיד למי יש יותר כבוד. Yeah! All right.
It's your
There we go. Go away. Coming back to you. So you can see, I hope you all enjoyed that choreography and the Jufros. The Jufros are so in the 60s and 70s after Casablanca, Yehoram Gaon becomes very central in in the Israeli music scene. He releases records, 1 or 2 every year. He participates in music festivals, and he releases albums, 3 albums that typify his career. Okay, Yehoram Gaon, Romanzo de Beladinot, Ladino romances. Okay, Yehoram Gaon, Efo Atova, Where Are You Beloved? And not all of these romances are sung in Ladino. Some of them are sung in Hebrew translation. Efo Ahuva, love songs and ballads, and Yehoram Gaon, songs for Shabbat. So even though in Israel, Yehoram Gaon is not considered observant, he doesn't wear a kippah, he considers himself to be Masorti or traditional. This connects him to his background, to his family. Okay, and he raises his children in the same way, and we'll see his children and later his grandchildren. So there are stories about Saba Moshe, Yehoram's father, that the children are telling their children, and it's a very big family thing. So from this period, I want to play 3 songs. The first is Ballad for a Medic, which is the first of many songs that memorialize IDF losses, and we'll take a little bit of a closer look after that, at that. Ballad for a Medic won first place at the Israel Song Festival in 1969. It's very, very moving, and it's really hard for me to stop it in the middle, but I will. It has the Hebrew text, so those of you who are able to follow the Hebrew text will be able to see that. From his Ladino album, we'll listen a little bit to Los Bibilicos, which is very, very well known. And then in 1976, he releases Kumitzi, which is one of the first songs that he does with Nomi Shemel. And in 1977, he releases the album Od Lo Ahavti Dai, and we will come back to Od Lo Ahavti Dai. But right now, let's listen to some selections from these 3 songs so that you don't feel completely like a yo-yo going back and forth. So, you know, the medics are frontline workers, and they suffer a lot of losses when there's battle, which happens in Israel way too often.
הם התקדמו לאט, הכל היה רגוע, מנגד הנהר, וקומם מרשתש, פתאום רעם ברק, אחד צעק פצוע, אני כבר בא, ענה לו החודש. עלינו על מוקש, צעק אז הפצוע, אני כאן לצדך, ענה לו החודש. ברד של אש פתח, ברד כבד קטוע, מעבר לנהר, לקום מהרופס, השתותי כאן, ביקש אז הפצוע, עזוב שטויות, ענה לו החודש, תציל את עצמך, ביקש אז הפצוע, אני נשאר איתך, ענה לו החודש.
And I'm going to pause this because as you can see, it's a very long song. I forgot that this had the English translation, which gives you an opportunity to hear how much acting he does in his singing and how he changes the quality of his voice as he sings. This is a little bit of Los Bilbilicos. I think I misspelled that in the PowerPoint.
Los bilbilicos cantan, suspiran del amor. Los bilbilicos cantan, suspiran del amor. Y la pasión me mata. Muchísimo a mi dolor y la pasión me mata, muchísimo a mi dolor.
So, and this period where these records come out in the mid 60s to mid to late 70s is really when his voice is at its peak and his recordings are at their most popular. This is Kumitzi, as I said, with Nomi Shemer. I'm going to put this on full screen because we finally have some video here. And there was a little example of the not quite in tune. So the melody is Nomi Shemer. The text is Chaim Nachman Bialik. And those of you who speak Hebrew might have noticed that he put the accent on the wrong syllable, which is the Sephardi pronunciation, and many of Bialik's songs were to be pronounced in that way. So, as I mentioned, a relationship with Tzahal. So, during the 73 war, Yehoram Gaon was now a big star. He was drafted into Miluim, into reserve duty, and he went down. He had released 2 years earlier a record which included the song Rosa, 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 which many of you may, ach, 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 Rosa, 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 Rosa. And there were just so many sing-alongs that we could do. So that didn't make the cut. But if you read Hebrew, this is the jeep that they went down, and it says Sayeret Rosa. How would you translate Sayeret? The command, so the special units are called a Sayeret. So it's Special Unit Rosa, Commando Casablan. Okay, and so
Sayeret, tourist? Sayeret?
No, Sayeret with a
Sayeret.
Sayeret. And so these are pictures of him down at the front during the 73 war. He went and toured. Those of you who I think everybody here is old enough, but I don't know how much you would have followed. The beginning of war, the war was devastating. There were many losses. And when the Israeli forces, the Israeli tank forces reached the canal, and they were getting ready to cross the canal, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of stress. And so having somebody down there, being one of the chevre, because as you can see in this bottom picture here, there was no space between the artists and the soldiers. He was one of the guys. And a friend of his was later on a program called This Is Your Life. He became a general later in the army. And they talked about the fact that there is no measuring the contribution that having the entertainers come to the soldiers at the front made. And we know this from here as well, from Bob Hope. And so he released other songs in 2014. He released these two songs memorializing the casualties of the Lebanon War, one of which is Eretz Tzvi, which was in the memory of Ro'i Klein, who fell on a grenade to save his comrades. And Shlomi was released also in 2014 with a melody by Nuri Hirsch in memory of Banya Sarel, who was killed during the 50-day campaign of Tzuk Eitan, which is the Gaza campaign in 2014. And so I'm just going to play you a brief excerpts of those two. Thank you. Somebody looked up Sayeret as reconnaissance units. So we'll just listen to short excerpts of these two.
בחצי הלילה הם קמו והיכו בקצה העולם, כבני רשף חשו הרחיקו להשיב את כבוד האדם אל ארצי, אל שדותיה, אל הכרמל והמדבר, אל עם אשר לא יקשר, שאת בניו לא יפקיר לזר.
So even without understanding the words, the emotion that is in his singing is very clear. And this is one of the last songs that Nurit Hirsch wrote. And this is for Bonya Sarel.
שלומי קשור בחוט אל שלומך, קשור בחוט אל שלומך. החגים האהובים ותקופות השנה הנפלאות, עם אוצר הריחות הפרחים הפורי, העלים והרוחות.
And so you can hear, did I not share? I'm sorry, so you didn't hear anything. Why didn't somebody say something? Could you hear it?
We heard it, we just didn't see anything.
Okay, sorry. So you can hear the emotional, I apologize, but I'm not going to go back and do it again because time. So first of all, you can hear the emotional quality in his singing. The second song, obviously the vocal quality has deteriorated quite a bit, but there's also, after listening to many songs of his over the last few weeks, there becomes a sameness, because although poets and composers want to write songs for him, they write Yehoram Gaon songs for him. So there's a certain sameness to it. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. I apologize that you couldn't see. And so we're going to go to a song that became very popular, and this is our final sing-along, and then I have some other things. So Od Lo Ahavti Dai came out in 1977. It was a very popular album, and Naomi Shemer wrote both the words and the melody, and this is not a Yehoram Gaon ballady song, because I wanted to do some up songs. Now, Naomi Shemer is known to have been politically somewhat on the right. She was in favor of the construction in the territories. And so there are hints of that here. So the chorus goes, I haven't loved enough. The wind and the sun are still on my face. My words are incomplete. If not now, then when? And of course, if not now, then when is an allusion to the quote, famous quote by Hillel, right?
Okay,
If not now, when? If not me, who? And if not now, when? And so my hands have yet to build a village, allusion to the territories. I have yet to find water in the barren wilderness. I have yet to paint a flower, and I have yet to find the path that leads to my destiny. Ay. When will I grow green fields? When will my city stand tall? When will my grapevine grow from the dust? There is so much to build and so much to be, and my love is just beginning. And if you think of this in the context of leaving Yamit and building in the territories, when will I raise up my children and sing them my first song? When the snowflakes fall in summer, I will write down my memories in the house of my dreams. Sorry, my formatting. I haven't loved enough. Your beauty tempts me, but the time is not right. There is so much to be done. Grant me leave for the race that is yet to be won. So personal life is less important. We need to build the country. And so again, this is an easy song to learn. So before we go review the chorus, I'm going to show you the dance. It became so popular that a dance was choreographed for it. It's very well known. Do not worry, the song is slower than the dance, than the music for the dance. So you can now see the YouTube, yes? All right, here we go.
לא אהבתי די.
הידיים, עוד לא בניתי כפר, עוד לא מצאתי מים באמצע המדבר, עוד לא ציירתי פרח, עוד לא גיליתי איך תוביל אותי הדרך ולאן אני הולך. עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אמרתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי. עוד לא שתלתי דשא, עוד לא הקמתי עיר, עוד לא נתתי כרם על כל גבעות הגיר, עוד לא הכל עשיתי ממש במו ידיי, עוד לא הכל ניסיתי, עוד לא אהבתי די. עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אמרתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי.
So I hope you all know the dance because I'm going to check you on it afterwards. It's a pretty elementary dance. And now you've heard, I'm not sure it's the same key that he sings it in, but let's pretend that it is. I עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. I עוד לא אהבתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי. And I see everybody who's got their cameras on, thank you, singing. So we're going to go right to it. And if you didn't have your camera on and you don't know it, you have no one to blame but yourself. All right, let's go away. And we actually have video for this one, which you will be able to see this time.
עוד לא בניתי כפר, עוד לא מצאתי מים באמצע המדבר, עוד לא ציירתי פרח, עוד לא גיליתי איך תוביל אותי הדרך ולאן אני הולך.
עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אהבתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי.
עוד לא שפלתי דשא, עוד לא הקמתי עיר, עוד לא נתתי כרם על כל גבעות הגיר, עוד לא הכל עשיתי ממש במו ידיי, עוד לא הכל ניסיתי, עוד לא אהבתי די.
עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אהבתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי.
ואהבתי שאפור
ואת כל כך יפה, ממך אני בורח כמו למגפה. עוד יש הרבה דברים שרציתי לעשות, אך בטח תסלחי לי גם בשנה הזאת. עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אהבתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי. עוד לא אהבתי די, הרוח והשמש על פניי. עוד לא אהבתי די, ואם לא עכשיו ומתי. And perhaps you noticed who he was singing this in front of. This was an army performance. So this continued. Now, our next is a somewhat participatory section. I have two side-by-sides for you of Yehoram Gaon and Arik Einstein, and I will put up a poll afterwards. So the first one is one that those of you who have been following me for a while know that we have heard before, Shnei Shoshanim, We heard Shoshana Damari. We heard Yafa Yelkoni. We heard, I think we might have heard Ofrat Chaza. And so now we're going to hear the two gentlemen, both of whom recorded many, many albums of golden oldies. So in the same way that Arik Einstein helped preserve Eretz Yisrael HaYafa, the beautiful land of Israel, Yehoram Gaon did so as well. So here I'm going to play you excerpts from two versions of Shnei Shoshanim. And then I'm going to give you some time to give your opinion. So here's Shnei Shoshanim with Yehoram Gaon.
אשיר לך שירתי כנושה, אשיר לך זמר על השושן, היו לפני שנים, שני שושנים, היה זה כבר רחוק היום, אחד לבן, שני ידו.
Okay, that was Exhibit A. Sorry, we're going to mute and let the commercial go by. I'm so glad they do this countdown for you. Ah.
אשיר לך שירתי קדושה, אשיר לך זמר על שושן, היו לפני שנים, שני שושנים, היה זה כבר רחוק היום, אחד לבן שני ידו.
All right, so we're going to come back here and I'm going to launch my poll. All right, here you go. This is your opportunity to be active. So there's 25 of you on this call, so I hope everybody will vote. 3 votes, come on, come on. 5 votes. 8 votes, 8 out of 25, that's like barely 30%. Okay, 12, we're getting better. Come on, come on, come on, you can do it. Interesting. Ah, interesting, interesting, interesting. Come on, you got 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. So I'm going to end the poll and share this with you. Can you see it? I see 10 Einstein and 7 Gaon, which is so interesting because for me, and you know, I love Arik Einstein, but for me, this song, Yehoram Gaon had it hands down. So that was interesting for me. All right, let's get rid of this poll, stop sharing this poll. And now going back to my, okay. So the next one is the same text, Hachnisini, which is a Bialik text. Now, if you remember when we talked about Yehoram Gaon, about Arik Einstein, sorry, Arik Einstein, unlike Yehoram Gaon, was a collaborator. Gaon released a few albums and I had them in and I was like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? And honestly, the music was eh. So Arik Einstein was the ultimate collaborator and he actually wrote the songs with his collaborators. So we have the same text, which is Arik Einstein and Miki Gabrielov, and then a setting that Nurit Hirsch wrote for Yehoram Gaon. So it's going to be different melodies, but the same text, the meaning of the text is, bring me under your wing and be for me like a mother and a sister. It's really a gorgeous text that is not within our realm to go into too much now. All right, so you go away and you go away, and here is a much younger Nurit Hirsch with a much younger Yehoram Gaon.
הכניסיני תחת כנפך, והי לי אם והכל, ויהי חיקך מקלט ראשי, חן תפילותיי הנידחות, ובית רחמים בין השמשות, שכיב עגל לחזור ייסורה. אומרים יש בעולם נעורים,
Okay, so that's number one. Here's number two.
הכניסיני תחת כנפך, והי לי אם ואחות, ויהי חיקך מקלט ראשי, כן תפילותיי הנידחות, ובעת רחמים בין השמשות, שכיב האגן לחסות ייסוריי. אומרים יש בעולם נעורים, היכן נעורה.
Okay, and I'm going to pause it here. And for those of you who don't read Hebrew, right here on the upper right-hand corner of this screen is a countdown clock to the Eurovision of 2012. So, the next one, here we go. So here's our poll for Hachnisini. And come on, it's not hard. Nobody knows who you are. It's anonymous. So interesting. I've got 11, I've got 12, I've got 14, 15, 15, 15 going once, 15 going twice. All right, you had your chance. So this is the opposite of what I thought. There you go. So in Hebrew they say, Al ta'am ve'al reach en ma litvakeach. There's no arguing about taste. So except that you guys are all wrong. All right. So on the 80s and beyond, so what you're going to see on these two, the next two slides, these are copies from Yehoram Gaon's website. And he continues to release new songs. They're received indifferently. He acts in Israeli movies right here on the left side of the screen. These are all the Israeli movies that he acted in. You notice Casablanca is right here. He continues to act in movies. This chart here, our TV series that he was on and continues to perform in. He has a weekly radio program on Galei Tzahal, Israel, the Israel Army Radio, where he talks about events and plays, reads poetry. He continues to be in Israeli theater. This picture here on the right are plays that he has been and continues to act in. You notice 2016. And following in his footsteps, so he has here, there's a page of books, Sfarim. The early ones are Moshe David Gaon, which was his father, which is newspapers in Ladino, poems, the Jews of the West, of the East. And then his brother Benny, who was a very well-known businessman. His son, Moshe David Gaon, writes a book about Chachamei Yerushalayim, or the wise people of Jerusalem. And Yehoram himself releases an autobiography, and just recently 2017, he just recently released another autobiography. So you know, you can love his songs, you cannot love his songs, you can love his voice, you cannot love his voice, but there is no question that the impact that he has had on Israeli culture. He won the Israel Prize in 2004. And in bringing forth awareness and pride of Sephardi culture and bringing Ladino to the forefront. Politically, he has been very involved. He was on the Jerusalem Council for 2 years as a minister of culture, wanting to bring more Sephardi music and culture to the city and into the schools. He's been very careful. He makes comments that are geared to not be overly offensive to anybody. But he did comment on some of the newer, it's called Mediterranean music, as lazy and as not using good texts. And some of the younger Mizrahi singers were very upset with him, but he stood by his position. And so to finish up, I would like to play for you the last song that he released. Last year, he turned 80. It's got a lovely video in which he is interacting with his granddaughter. I didn't have another place to put it, but as I mentioned, family is very important. He married at the age of 40, and his wife, Ziva, was 17 when they got married. Actually, I think he was 37 and she was 17. It was quite a big scandal in Israel at the time, as you can imagine. His son, Moshe David, is named for his father, and his daughter Hila are his only children. But obviously the grandchildren are very important. And so we're not going to sing this song, but the name of the song is Imrak Taskimi, if you only agree. Someone is ready to move for you, if only you would agree. Whatever will happen, it will be better for you. Someone is ready to walk beside you, if only you would agree, if only you would stop rushing. The stars will fall on you if only you would agree, and the moon will go down by itself. Good winds will come only to you. They will sit on your neck, if only you would agree, and the moon itself will come down. This is Google Translate. I didn't edit this, or this is the official translation. I didn't edit it. Someone is ready to move beside you, if only you would agree. Whatever will happen, it will be easier for you. Someone is ready to touch your heart, if only you would agree, if only you would let him speak. And so here is our final song for this program.
מישהו מוכן לנוע בשבילך אם רק תסכימי, מה שלא יקרה יהיה לך טוב יותר. מישהו מוכן ללכת לצידך אם רק תסכימי, אם רק תפסיקי למהר. הכוכבים ייפלו עלייך אם רק תסכימי, גם הירח מעצמו ירד. רוחות טובות יבואו רק אלייך, ישמעו צווארך עוד אם רק תסכימי, גם הירח מעצמו ירד. גם הירח מעצמו ירד. מישהו מוכן לנוע לצידך אם רק תסכימי, מה שלא יקרה יהיה לך קל יותר. מישהו מוכן לגעת בליבך אם רק תסכימי, אם רק תרשי לו לדבר. הכוכבים ייפלו עלייך אם רק תסכימי, גם הירח מעצמו ירד. רוחות טובות יבואו רק אלייך, ישבו על צווארך, אם רק תסכימי, גם הירח מעצמו ירד. גם הירח מעצמו ירד.
So a charming, somewhat old-fashioned song, but not too bad for an 80-year-old. And I promise I will look at all of your comments later. And if you're watching us on Facebook, I promise I will read your comments as well. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, now is the time. Otherwise, yes, Barb?
Did he grow up speaking Ladino as well as Hebrew?
Yes. Yes, he's fully fluent in Ladino. And yeah, so somebody else.
So when he wrote his music in Ladino, and when he sang in Ladino, he knew what he was saying.
Yes, as I said, the movie from Toledo to Jerusalem is in Ladino. He speaks Ladino the whole movie, and I believe he wrote the script. So, yeah, and those of you who are at rehearsal Monday, you'll notice his pronunciation is not the same as the Greek Ladino that we heard, because he grew up, first of all, his family is from Bosnia and Turkey, and second of all, he grew up in Israel speaking Hebrew and Ladino. So, anybody else? Yes, ma'am. You need to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Joyce.
Hi, Joyce.
So I grew up on this music actually, which is really interesting. And I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I have one of these Amazon Echo Dots or Echoes. Do you know? I don't know if people know what it is, but basically a few weeks ago, I just happened to have, asked to have her play me songs by Yehoram Gaon, and I had this amazing playlist.
Yeah.
I was so struck by that. I didn't expect it.
I don't know who does his social media. I assume he doesn't do it himself. I didn't find a Facebook page. He does have a YouTube channel, and there's new uploads. I assume that he's not actually physically doing it himself. But and there's tons. I mean, there's tons on YouTube. There's tons out there, which is amazing. And it's one of the really nice things of preparing these programs is, you do the research and you find all this stuff. It's like, wow. I mean, that recording from Kol Yisrael of the Avretu, I don't even know how it came up. It's just every time I look, and if you know Hebrew and you type into search in Hebrew, especially in Wikipedia in Hebrew, in YouTube in Hebrew, in Google in Hebrew, you get different results than if you look in English. It's really interesting.
I was just struck by, one second more, I was struck by on that last piece that we did about today, Shoshanim, I think I was trying to.
Yeah, Shnei Shoshanim.
And I thought that actually the pianist was very demonstrative in terms of how she was playing.
Yes.
That she was really more with the flow of the song than the other instrumental.
Yeah, Hachnisini, that was Nurit Hirsch, and she composed the song, and she composed it for him, and they're good friends, and you could see that. And in a way, it's an unfair comparison. Had I been able to find an Arik Einstein with a video, we hear differently when we have video. So yeah, but I agree. She's an amazing musician. She did a session. Those of you who watched the Zamir Choral Foundation earlier in the spring and in the summer, and Mati Lazar interviewed her, and she was just playing, and the two of them had this conversation where he said, well, are you going to be accompanying yourself and singing? And she's, well, yeah, of course. And he said, well, not everybody can do that. And she was like, really?
When I lived in Israel in the 1980s, when we first arrived there, Ofra Chaza, of course, was very popular. Did they collaborate, do you know?
He did not do anything with Ofra Haza, no.
Oh,
They're a different generation.
well, he's a lot older than she
A
was.
lot- yeah, he's a lot older than she was. He did do something with Yardena Arazi.
Uh-huh.
You know, there was a trio of girls called Chocolate Menta Mastic. My cousin Ira called them Charlie's Angels, the Israel Charlie's Angels. They all came out of the army troops. Yardena Arazi was the brunette, but she was our, oh gosh, what was her name? She was our Farrah Fawcett. She was the Israeli Farrah Fawcett. She was gorgeous with the glamorous hair. And he did a collaboration with her and she put it on her album and it didn't do much. It was, meh, you know, it just, he has his own particular style. There are songs that he does that are just wonderful. Many of the songs that he has sung are part of the Great Israeli Songbook. But to me, even more than what he did as a singer was what he did as a cultural icon, as a representative. You know, we talked so much today about identity and about people seeing themselves in performers and seeing themselves, you know, seeing themselves in leadership positions. And he took a very strong, very positive stance on his identity as an Israeli, as a Jerusalemite, as a Sephardi, as a traditional person.
He was very popular when I lived there. He was on television all the time.
Yeah.
And he sang with the Israel Philharmonic. You know, my husband was a member of that orchestra and he sang with the Israel Philharmonic all the time.
Yeah. Barb Zeidman, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to share something? No, you muted yourself. Barb, there you go.
Okay. It's been wonderful. Thank you. I did not know this guy. I feel I've missed something, but thanks for catching me up.
Sure. So as I said, Monday, L'chaim with Cantor Ketchko Gray will be an commemorative session for International Holocaust Day with the music of Siget, the hometown of Elie Wiesel. I will be back next month with Shlomo Artzi. We have a Broadway session the first Sunday of the month presented by Mimi Raisin. All of this is at our website, www.Colorado Hebrew Chorale. And if you are moved to make a donation, we will never say no. Barb, you wanted to add something before we call it a night?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether he felt that he had any discrimination as a Sephardi compared to what some of the others, you know, really, you know, was reflected in their music, reflected in their lives, that they felt was a discrimination.
I found nothing to that effect.
I didn't see him looking at him. I was just saying he's had like self-confidence that
there is so much material, and I didn't look in English, but if you do interview Yehoram Gaon or Hebrew Ra'ayon Yehoram Gaon, you get so much stuff. I mean, there was 2 different This Is Your Lives, and he really does not, he does talk about his father having been tough, very tough on him. But he does not talk about, and really, you know, if you think about, I mean, he was in La Katanachal, which basically gave him a fast track. And then once he was involved, he was acting, he was, you know, his family was very involved. And then once he got Casablanca, which was pretty early, you know, so Laila Tov, good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.